Yeah, we get to that. I either have a song or I'll ask for some suggestions. So when I started doing this, I did it in kindergarten. So they give me three things, and it was really good because they'd say a ball, a seal, and a dog. Or something. Well, dogs give you
Hi, welcome to Sunday service. Thank you so much for signing on.
for incredible song. So and it's always something somebody says. That's why it isn't completely improv. So I was at an event and I said, "How have you been?" It's been a tough week. Why is that? She goes, sometimes you just have to cry. And all I saw was sometimes you just have to cry. And the song got written. But I forgot to tell anybody in the audience it was going to be a song improvised. So when it was done, it's really nice. Yeah, but I forgot to tell you the film. When I do the improv, I've probably done over 1,000. I've probably seen it.
Yeah.
Because I never. Sometimes I'll write a song. The improv part of things. So we certainly have time. If you have time. But speaking time
I
is
just want
30
to give you
minutes.
a caveat. We're streaming now, so the conversation's
So I better watch what I say.
Yeah, I was just like,
I don't think I'd say anything different, but it's always good to know. Speaking, I just plan on 30. I just want to make sure I kind of my hand clock up looking at it. So people think, boy, he doesn't want to be here. Kids looking at his watch.
I don't. Hi, Ben. I'm Carol. I'm the music person here.
How are you?
And just wanted to touch base.
Okay. Thanks for letting me take some of the music out.
That's a big book. It's always nice to be a fresh voice.
How long have you been affiliated here?
Well, I personally, since I've been a member since 2017, no, 27. But actually, coming here before we were in this building.
Yeah, I was here, and this was a restaurant. You guys were something.
Right. Yeah, we had a. Yeah, we out there.
That's good.
Yeah. So this worked out really well. This space. Yeah.
And have you lived up for a long time?
Actually, no. Since before my husband and I were married, so yeah, so we have a long-term relationship. Originally, but my husband's
with the wheel, it's like driving a car.
we met in college and they were so not me. Definitely not. Entirely. Yeah.
Very active with this windy.
Anyway, so, yeah, so that's, sits there. What about you?
I'm from Chicago. Milwaukee with my wife. He's from New York. 30 years ago, so I spent 2 years there talking on the radio. She was like, "Who stays in Civic?" Well, 31 years later, our daughter will be 27 this week. She left. She's in Boston, and my wife and I are still in. We came out here in '82 after we graduated from grad school. Spent a week in a tiny cabin. It was like 300 square feet, had 5 bedrooms. And it rained a whole week. Horseback riding in the rain. A couple restaurants. Last night I got to go to Bar Jacksonville. Play music. It was right down the street from the Square Acre Lodge. That's the first after those guys. And so we were going, I was a teacher. And, an educator for the state department. So we talks about scams, identity theft, how to avoid them. There's the music work. Sorry, 63 last week. For 1 week, now I've had the same age every year. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to meet you. A couple years ago, I started knocking on doors and attending churches. One in Mecklenburg, North
Yeah,
6 months ago.
Yeah, sailing with a destination. That tells me I should go to navigate times scheduling. It's fun. Yeah, I love it.
Morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good. Anxious to hear what you have to say about stories.
Me too. Me too.
That's where the faith comes in, right? You just get up there and talk, and all of a sudden there's a talk.
Well, it's all up here. It's all up here. As I describe it, though, it's like quilting.
Uh-huh.
Every speech is different because I use different pieces to make the quilt work. That way it's fresh for me and for you.
That's right.
Well, I do now. No, I just, once being set in the state, I called some places to see I need kind of Lake Caesar. John, Brash, wedding. Well, 2 minutes after I started, 30 people showed up all dressed in mats and just sat. And somebody kind of said, "Hey, it's time." So they asked me if I knew a song called Atlantic City. I said, I take requests, but I don't necessarily play them. I don't know. Who knows the song? Okay, he plays guitar. Yeah, come on. I thought it was pretty cool. The groove I was telling you that he had the composure to grab a guitar and just play the song. That was fun. And when he left, he did a lot of vocals. Based on what the characters say, I create songs. There are a couple of really good
Thank you, Trish, for such a lovely arrangement and such beautiful playing this morning. What a great start to our service. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion that seeks to encourage all on their unique spiritual journey. We gather here as a community of people who are more than categories. We gather here, each ministering to the other, meeting one another's strength, encouraging wholeness. We give thanks for this extraordinary blessing, the gathering together of separate, unique individuals as one whole, one body, our fellowship. Here may our minds stretch, our hearts open, our spirits deepen. I'm Donna Johnson. I'm your service leader this morning, in case you didn't get that. Anyway, I ask that you take a moment to silence any cell phones or noise-making devices at this time in honor of our time together. On behalf of this fellowship, I extend a special welcome to anyone who may be visiting with us today. It's our custom to ask visitors to introduce themselves. So if you are here for the first time or haven't been here in a while, we ask that you stand if you are able and tell us who you are, where you're from, and perhaps a word about what brought you here today. Anyone willing to introduce themselves?
Hi, my name is Karen Nystrom. This is my husband, Russ Tomlin. We haven't been here in a while, but you still were kind enough to make one of these for us. A while back. And,
Welcome back.
we moved up to Ellison Bay just about a year ago, and I work at the Cider House down there. But anyway, just so happy to be here. We just said this morning, we're going.
Okay. At this time, if there are any announcements that are related to the fellowship, please share these now. Please wait for Carl to bring the microphone to you so that all may hear your announcement. And please identify yourself when you're making the announcement.
Good morning. My name is Hank Wulst, and we will be joined either at the end of the service or toward the end of the service today by the Reverend Jim Honig and Mariah Good. And Jim had emailed me back about a couple of weeks ago and said that after we had given him a check on behalf of the fellowship for $9,000 to go to the support of the Door County Housing Partnership, he said, I'd like to come and personally, Mariah and I would like to come and personally thank the fellowship. Now, bear in mind, he's the Reverend Jim Honig. He preaches up the road at Shepherd of the Bay Lutheran Church, so he's got a flock to minister to. And I think they conclude their services at 10:30. So however long it takes to get from Ellison Bay to here is about the time that he should be arriving. So I've talked with Donna about it, and I think she's talked with Ben about it. And so we may, at the conclusion of the service, we'll just basically have him come up right away, or we'll have to improvise for a few minutes pending his arrival. Okay?
No other announcements? Okay. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul. The Storyteller by Mike Jones is a song inspired by the work of his friend Taffy Thomas. Its words perfectly encapsulate Taffy's own thoughts on the art and practice of storytelling. I'm a teller of tales, a spinner of yarns, a weaver of dreams, and a liar. I'll teach you some stories to tell your friends while sitting at home by the fire. You may not believe everything that I say, but there's one thing I'll tell you that's true. For my stories were given as presents to me, and now they are my gifts to you. My stories are as old as the mountains and rivers. They were told in the homes of peasants in rags and kings with fine clothes adorning. There's no need for silver or gold in great store for a tale that becomes rich with the telling. And as long as each listener has a good pair of ears, it matters not where they are dwelling. A story well told can lift up your hearts and help you forget all your sorrows. It can give you strength and courage to stand and face all your troubles tomorrow. For there's wisdom and wit, beauty and charm. There's laughter and sometimes there's tears. But when the story's over and the spell is broken, you'll find that there's nothing to fear. My stories were learned in my grandparents' home where their grandparents had also heard them. For a warm place to lay down their burdens, my stories are ageless. They never grow old. And with each telling, they are born anew. And when my story is ended, I'll still be alive in the tales that I've given to you. I'm so pleased to welcome Ben Marins as our guest speaker today. Although this is his first time speaking to us here at UUFTC, his is a familiar voice, as he is best known for his 21 years on the airwaves of Wisconsin Public Radio. He has crafted his talents as a singer, songwriter, and storyteller to his current vocation as an outreach specialist for the state's Bureau of Consumer Protection. He also consults with firms of all sizes about how to collect and share stories. Ben is also a troubadour. He can hear your story and immediately turn it into a song. I know we are all eager to hear about how our stories validate our existence and how they can help others along their way.
Good morning. Good morning. Pleasure to be here. The piano interlude to start, I could have sat there for hours. Just this is beautiful. So I hope to replicate some of that, and then I get to sit and listen, and I get to speak some more. So it's all pretty good. So I'm going to play a song for you called "By the Rivers of Babylon." It's from the 137th Psalm, and its message is: no matter where we are and what's happening to us, we are all entitled to our voice. We're entitled, if no one else hears us, for ourselves and our Maker to hear us. But the true gift is that we listen to each other, so we give each other a voice. If you look to your left and your right, you will notice you're part of a gathering that in the history of the world has never happened before. In the history of the world, it will never happen again. Your presence here is giving everyone, especially me right now, the opportunity to be heard. So you're doing something that'll never happen again, and that's pretty special. I give you Babylon. Oh, by the waters of Babylon, we lay down and wept. Oh, we lay down and wept for the Zion. We remember the Zion. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my Redeemer. By the waters of Babylon, we lay down, oh, we lay down and wept. Yes, we lay down and wept for Babylon. Oh, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart, oh, be acceptable, oh, in thy sight, oh Lord, my rock and my redeemer. By the waters of, by the waters of Babylon. Thank you very much.
Alan and left. Those two go.
Please stand in body or spirit and join in the unison affirmation followed by the doxology. We ask that those who are not wearing masks kindly hum, while those wearing masks may sing along with enthusiasm. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. At this time, you are invited to share any joys you may have so that we may celebrate with you. Or if you have concerns that burden you, feel free to share so that we may offer comfort and solace. Please identify yourself when you share, and please wait for the microphone to be brought to you. And keep in mind that the service is being broadcast and will be on the internet. So please do not share about another person unless you have permission from them to do so.
It is my great pleasure to inform you all that we have a celebrity in our midst today. Jan Forkert, friend to many of us, extraordinary artist, fantastic sailor in another life, and just a dear woman, is 91 today.
I think a lot of us are kind of afraid what this horrible age is. It's fantastic.
Now that's a story to tell. We will now collect the offering. Oh.
One more. I wanted to do the joy first. Our dear friend Sally Mom is in North Carolina visiting her daughter for a wonderful getaway in warm weather. On Wednesday, she fell and fractured her femur.
No.
She is getting good care at Duke and Durham. Had started PT yesterday and is getting along. I have her daughter's address if anybody wants to send Sally the card.
Now, we will collect the offering. If you prefer, you may make your donations online from our website, uufdc.org. You'll find the donate button on the far right of the homepage. It's easy, safe, and secure to make your payment there. Please give generously to support the work of this fellowship. Please enjoy a moment of quiet.
Today I am a man. That's what every Jewish kid who gets a bar mitzvah says when they're 13. It isn't true, but we say it. The Wednesday before my bar mitzvah, I was in a sanctuary with Meyer Schisler, my Hebrew school teacher. Now, I went to Hebrew school twice a week for 4 years, and no one ever told me you're supposed to read the stuff at home and study it and get better at it. So I was quite worried the Wednesday before my bar mitzvah because I didn't know my Hebrew very well. And Meyer Schisler stopped me in the sanctuary and he put his hand on my hand. He went, "Benjamin, it's in God's hands now." And he walked out and he slammed the door, and I sat there going, "Oh my God." I had 2 goals for my bar mitzvah. I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of my grandfather, the patriarch of the family, the Jewish leader, the Passover Seder. He was at the head of the table, and you wanted to make sure you did it well for Grandpa. And I didn't want to be Gary Davis. Gary Davis, 3 weeks before his bar mitzvah. And like me, he wasn't a great student. And when he got stuck, he did what you're supposed to, cover the mic, but he didn't. He went like this, "Rabbi, what's this word?" And everybody laughed, and I did not want to be Gary Davis. I was really no more a man on the day after my bar mitzvah than I was the Wednesday before, but life went on. When I only have time to tell you one quick story about myself, I say it all started with a pop. When I was 16, I was water skiing on spring break in Florida, and I felt a pop in my back, but 16-year-olds don't think that much, so I got back up and I skied for a while. Later on, my legs were getting numb when I was sitting by the pool, and I ended up having back surgery. Pretty intensive surgery back then. They fused the spine, they put rods in, and then they put me in a body cast from my shoulders to my knees for the summer of my junior year of high school. Everybody else is dating and going to prom. And I was hoping my brother and my mom would come downstairs and bring me some water every once in a while. Something very odd happened. I was in a cast. I was an introvert. And I came out sort of the cocoon that a caterpillar's in as a butterfly to fly, and I became an extrovert that summer. I don't know why or how. But now when people say, "Aren't you afraid of public speaking?" It's one of the top fears people have. And my fear isn't not speaking, it's failing to take the opportunity when it comes around. So that pop in the back had a lot more significance than I ever knew. My dad bought me a car that summer. I got 6 sets of keys, which told me a lot of people had been driving it, but it was a Ford, it was a Pontiac Firebird, and it was a convertible. Thank God it was an automatic. When I finally got out of that cast and started driving around a stick shift, I probably would have hurt me and many others. So I had a car my senior year of high school, which meant when we went to my grandparents for the Sunday afternoon deli sandwich gathering, my mom and her identical twin, my aunt, and her 4 children, we went to go visit Grandma and Grandpa. Grandpa had emphysema, and he was in bed, and he had oxygen. So we didn't get a lot of time with him. But when everybody else left, I had my own car. So I said, "Mom, I'm going to stay. I want to visit with Grandpa a little bit." And he passed not that long afterwards. So it turned out to be a wise decision on my part. But again, it was just happenstance. But when I went in to go see him, he was a businessman and he was tough. But I saw something on his face I'd never seen before. I saw fear. His oxygen tank had stopped working. And my grandma came in and she had fear in her face too. Well, I didn't really think too much about it. I opened up, well, first I called the number on the tank, but it was a recorded message. And they were located about 40 miles southwest of where we were. We were in the north suburbs of Chicago. So then I got the yellow pages out and I looked for oxygen supply companies. I'd never done anything like this before. It just seemed the right thing to do. And I found a company 5 miles away, live operators 24/7. When I called them, they were there. 15 minutes later, 2 huge guys brought 2 big tanks. They showed my grandma how to work them. They said, if the one tank doesn't work, and it will, the other tank will work. And if they don't work, and it's 2 a.m, we'll be here as quickly as we were today in 10 to 15 minutes. And I saw the color go back in my grandpa's face and tears down my grandmother's cheeks, and she gave me the biggest hug of my life. And when I got out to my car, I actually stopped and I said out loud, today I am a man. Our collective bar mitzvahs in our lives are when we stand up to be counted. And I share this story with you because it, for me, is a story as much of faith as anything else.
Because the idea is, how do we reach maturity as a human being? But by helping other human beings. And most of us at 13 are nowhere near ready to do that. But I believe that our faith connects us. It doesn't make a difference what faith you follow. If ultimately, when you take off all the dogma of your faith, there's a maker and there's you. And you do the best you can with what the maker's made possible. And part of that is your experiences in life. And part of it's the stories about your experiences in life. Because we're all trying to figure it out. I'm sure there's still things you wonder and ponder we'll learn. I hope there are. For you and for me when I get to meet you. How do we get where we're going? Well, we stumble along most of the way. We think we know what we're doing. And sometimes we do. And often the way we do this is by hearing the stories of others. How did you do it? My story of me validates my journey. I've been here 63 years come this last Halloween. But it's the moments I spent learning how to do what I'm doing to get here, that when I share my stories, I'm helping you. And you in turn share your stories and you help me. I think we put our stories and our faith together. I think it makes quite a pair. Now, my stories are mostly nonfiction. There's nothing wrong with fictional stories, but I'm fascinated by the real stories. So that's what I share. That's what I tell. Once upon a time, we think of it as how we tell our kids the bedtime stories somebody made up. Our lives are all about once upon a time. That once upon a time right now is, as I said before, we're gathered in a group that will never meet again. To me, that's really special. Once upon a time. And our stories, when other people know them, will help us. They will help others to treat us with the dignity and respect, hopefully, we have earned. I was teaching some storytelling to a nurse group. And afterwards, this woman came up to me and she said, I want to tell you about Rose. Rose was at a nursing home. She had early onset dementia. By the end of the day, she got tired. She wasn't who she was at her best at breakfast and lunch. So when they took Rose into the dining hall, or she went to the dining hall, she'd sit down at the table and she'd bang her hands on the table. And they didn't want anyone in the nursing home to eat in their room, but they couldn't allow this behavior. Well, this new nurse heard about Rose and thought, maybe we're missing something. Maybe it's not Rose at all. She looked into Rose's history. Rose had been the hostess in the family restaurant for 40 years. So at the end of the day, when her mind started to slide, she walked into the dining hall and was told to sit down. Now that's the last thing you tell a hostess. Sit down and have a bite to eat in the middle of dinner. No. Rose felt that she was doing something really wrong when they were trying to make her sit and behave at dinner. Because to her, behaving at dinner was standing at a podium like I'm standing at here and making sure you've got enough coffee and a piece of pie for dessert and an extra fork or spoon if you need it. God loved the nurse. She convinced her boss to let Rose become the hostess of the dining hall at the nursing home. She put a podium at the door. Rose greeted everyone. She helped them when they needed help. She actually, paying money to be at the nursing home, worked there every night for dinner. The real respect they gave Rose was after dinner. They cleared the dining hall and they put a little table in the back and they brought her meal out with a silver tray covering it like they do in restaurants, room services, and such. Rose would quietly bow her head, say her prayers, and have her dinner. She was never a problem. She was an asset after that to the nursing home. Her story, once known, allowed others to help her continue the journey that she was on. Our stories validate who we are. And when you know them, you treat people with a little more dignity and respect. They're not just that man or woman walking by, not just a number, not just a congregant, they're a human being, they're a person. I went to the nursing home about 2 weeks after my uncle Max, my great uncle Max, had had gone there. He lived on his own as long as he could in a 3-story walk-up, and we kept telling him, you're going to be able to live independently longer if you move. But Uncle Max was pretty set in his ways, so he didn't move. There was a 4-month period where I was the midnight shadow traffic announcer in Chicago, which basically meant you would say, well, if you're coming from downtown to O'Hare, it's 20 minutes. And coming from O'Hare to downtown, it's 20 minutes. Going out on the Kennedy to the Edens to Dundee Road, it's 17 minutes. And from Dundee Road downtown right now, it's about 17 minutes. Oh, there is a stoplight out at Main Street in Gurnee. Well, it was a chance to be on the radio and in broadcasting, such as it was. Not too many people I knew heard me. But some days I get a call the next afternoon. It's Max. You're 320. It was pretty good. I'm at the stoplight in Gurnee. He remembered everything. I'd call him 3 weeks later. I'd call him again. He goes, how's the meeting last night? What meeting last night? I mean, how'd you know? Well, you mentioned it 3 weeks ago. You had this meeting coming up, and I thought you said it was last night. And it taught me a lot about being present. So when I went to the nursing home to visit him, I asked the nurse at the front desk, where is Max Phillips? I passed, as I walked in, the community room. It had chairs along the wall, the back, and the other wall, and there was a TV that was on some sort of Oprah-esque show, and most people kind of just slouched over. They looked like they were half alive. It was a scary scene for me. Scarier because Max wasn't there. So I said, where's Uncle Max? Who? And the other nurse said, oh, he means 301B. He came in a week and a half ago, I think. Blood rushed to my head. I said, don't call him 301B. He fought the Nazis who were burning numbers on people's arms. He fought for this country. He's the father of 2 children. His wife passed way too young, but he adored her and he never married again. He was a postman. He delivered our mail. He loved a stiff scotch in the afternoon and cigarettes, a pack a day. And when he quit cold turkey because it finally became known that it was really bad for him, he became a pack a day gum chewer. So don't ever call him 301B. He's earned the respect to be known by the name he's carried all these years. I miss those phone calls. Our stories they validate who we are. And if we follow the way we're made, 2 ears and 1 mouth, we tell stories half as much as we hear them. Because the learning comes not from the sharing of them, but from the hearing of them. My neighbors had a rabbi come over every week, every other week, with a group of guys sitting outside until now. And they study the Torah portion of the week. Not the rabbi at the synagogue I go to, but a fascinating young man from Australia. And the Torah portion, well, 2 months ago now, it said that in our lives, there are 42 key parts to our journey. 42 moments that are crucial and critical that mean the world to us. Now, we never know when they are. His message was, be present. Be as present as you can, because you don't know if the moment you're in is one of the 42. And I thought it's pretty cool. There's a movie called Sliding Doors. I don't know if people remember it. It wasn't super popular, but it's become a staple when I speak because it's about the difference one moment makes. Gwyneth Paltrow's the actress in it. Again, like the movie, never as famous as she wanted to be, but a decent actress who in the movie loses her job. She has a boyfriend. He's a writer. He's home. And while she is tearfully packing her desk and going down to the tube in London, the boyfriend's having an affair. And so he's not writing that morning. She goes to get on the train. And on the way down the steps where the train has just pulled into the station, on the way up is a woman with her little boy. And the little boy's holding Mama's hand, but not very tightly, and he jumps away from his mother. And Gwyneth Paltrow, for 1 second, stops, not to knock over the little boy. In the time she stops, the train's doors have opened and closed. The boy gets pulled up the stairs. Mother admonishes him, and Gwyneth Paltrow misses the train. Then the movie does something really odd. It starts over again. It's like, didn't we just see this? This time she goes down the stairs. And the little boy, when he goes to pull away from his mother, she has a grip that's tighter, and he doesn't get away. Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't miss the train. She makes it. The first time it happens, she gets home, the boyfriend and his girlfriend have finished. She left, he cleaned up the place and was at the typewriter. And the second time, she catches him. Now the movie does something I've never seen any other movie do. It shows us 2 movies. What happens when she makes the train, when she misses the train? At the end, it kind of comes together. I never tell people how, because if you haven't seen it or want to see it, I don't want to ruin it for you. But I'll tell you this, the lesson I get from this is, in our lives, we either make the train or we miss the train. We never get to know what happens on the side we didn't go. We either go out to dinner that night or we stay home. We either come to church or we stay home. We don't necessarily know how that affects things. Often when something bad happens, get in an accident, right? Oh man, 1 more second at that stoplight. Or if I had talked 5 more minutes on the phone, I wouldn't have been where I was when this happened. But in the grand scheme of things, even when the bad things happen, they make up part and parcel of who we are. So they're supposed to be that way, I guess. But you either make the train or you miss the train. Now, the rabbi talked about 42 key moments. I have a rabbi, and he tells something with a different number. So in Hebrew, the numbers are connected to the letters. So ABC would be Aleph, Bet, Dalet. And when you get to the H, or Achei, the word with the H and would be an I is Chai, means life. L'chaim, to life. Numerically, it is the number 18, because the letters all have numerical value. So the number 18 is extremely good fortune for Jews, and there's only one thing better than 18, 36. Because 2 is always better than 1, right? So Rabbi Shapiro has taught me that in the world there are 36 righteous people at any one time. They don't know who they are, and we don't know who they are. And when one of them passes, immediately a 36th person is born and is one of the 36 righteous. With this given, we are instructed, or at least advised, to do 2 things. Treat everyone we meet as if they're one of the 36 righteous people. And act in our daily moments as if we are one of the 36 righteous people. How do we find our way? Well, I think listening to other people is a great start. I'm working for the Consumer Protection Department. I give talks on how to avoid scams and identity theft or landlord-tenant rights issues. It's a great job. I get paid to speak. I've had to learn a lot lately, but it's been good. Now, the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, it's a mouthful. At a recent speech, somebody introduced me, said, Ben's with the Department of Agricultural Transportation, and he'll tell you the rest. I said, close enough. I'm a consumer protection specialist. We are housed in Milwaukee in the DNR building, because we don't have our own office here. DATCAP is housed in a big building in Madison. So there are 4 of us, and we telecommute, so we're not there all the time, and we share 3 cubbies. And the people who do work for the DNR have gotten to see us, and they're not sure who we are, because we don't really get to talk to people when we're working. So I was in the parking lot on Friday, and this man waves to me. He goes, I've seen you, but I don't know who you are. And I explained who I was and what I did. And Washington Matthew, he said his name twice. I go, Matthew Washington? He goes, no, I'm from Kenya. Matthew, Mathu. Washington is my first name.
Washington Matthew came to this country and went to the UW in River Falls. I think from Kenya, that doesn't sound all that exotic, and why would you do it? But he did. Comes from a big family, and his two brothers were sent here, went to school. Father had always made arrangements to pay for the education. Washington's father died the year before he came here, so he had no financial support. And he went on to tell me, that being an immigrant, a lot of people who criticize immigrants coming here don't realize how hard it is to be an immigrant, how hard it is to get settled here, to find any grants or loans. He had to pay out-of-state tuition when he first got here. And even back in the mid-'80s, out-of-state tuition was kind of pricey. He goes back home once a year. So he's found a way to make a living and pay for that. And I said to him, are you partnered? Cats, dogs, kids? No, that part of my life I'm working on. I still have to find my mate and have my children. Look, he's 55 years old. He's quite the optimist. Then he told me that there is this, his mom's still alive. And for 40 years, there's been arguments in the family back in Kenya over land because they own property. For 40 years, this has gone on. His grandmother and grandfather were involved in it. They're gone. The aunts and uncles were involved in it. Most of them are gone. So finally, somebody in the family said, well, here's this one piece of land. We're going to give it to you, assuming it was a worthless piece of land. It turns out there's a freshwater pool underneath it, a big one. So he works with water ecology for the DNR. And he's now planning, in addition to finding a wife and starting a family at age 55, to start this water import company in Kenya. You may think we had dinner. This all came from about 5 minutes in the parking lot. Because when you give your time to someone and ask them from a good place, an earnest place, how are you? Who are you? Tell me about yourself. Oh man, there's no greater feeling. And look at what he told me. Literally 5 minutes in the parking lot. I can't wait for our next conversation. Some of us aren't so fortunate. We get stuck. And we really don't know how do we move forward. Are we familiar with the show West Wing? So I got my absentee ballot. I voted for Jed Bartlett. So Jed Bartlett's the president of West Wing, for those of you who don't know. He has a bunch of people on the show. It's a story about the West Wing. And Leo is his chief of staff. Josh is a policy guy. And Leo's had trouble, and he got through it, and they supported him. And Josh is in trouble now. So Leo tells him he has his back. And he tells him with this story. Man is walking down the beach. He's not really looking where he's going. It's a big open beach. And he falls down into a tremendous hole he did not know was there, obviously. And once he got down in the hole, he was unable to get out of it. He didn't know what to do. Priest walks by. He's like, oh, thank God. Father, I'm stuck down the hole. Can you help me? He does. He writes a prayer on a piece of paper and throws it down into the hole. And then, doctor. He goes, well, maybe that can help. Doc, I could use some help. Stuck down here in the hole. The doctor says, okay. And he writes a prescription and throws it down into the hole. Then his friend comes by, Steve. Steve, I need some help. I'm stuck down into the hole. Can you help me? Steve does the honest thing. He jumps down into the hole. He goes, Steve, you foolish man. What were you thinking jumping down here? Now we're both stuck down here. Steve turns and goes, yeah, I know. But I've been here before and I know how to get out. It is the stories in our lives that teach us the way to go. If you live long enough, the bad things that happen later on in life Well, you kind of know what they're like because you've had them before. Or well, maybe it's not as bad as I think because it's in perspective, because I have a lifetime of stories that help me move forward. What is a story? A story is really a series of moments. I was telling, I don't have my glasses, Mark, is it? Yep. So I was telling Mark, because I'm anxious to hear what you have to say. I said, me too. It's not that I make it up. It's that I speak as a quilter quilts. There are pieces up here, lots of stories, different ways to go about getting my message out. I'm picking out a piece of a quilt every time I speak. Because if I wrote the speech here and I gave it, I'd be bored with it. It needs to be fresh for me and fresh for you. Or it won't be fresh enough for you. It just won't be. So this story it's a series of moments. Washington, Matthew, Rose, Grandpa. And then we connect them through use of your own creativity and through your own imagination and your own internal spark, because in the history of the world, there's never been a voice like yours. That's pretty great. In the whole history. Never before and never again. No matter how you use it. That's the definition of unique. Now, the story should have a point or a message, hopefully. It should have a point or message for the person telling it. And it should have a point, certainly, for the person sharing it. Now, funny thing about stories, we're going to get up to our Thanksgiving holiday. We're going to see people. We probably haven't seen them in a long time, and we want to share stories. Am I going to share the story about stopping at the place across the street and get my coffee this morning? Probably not. It's got to have more purpose than that. So when we gather with friends or we get to tell a story, we're interviewing for a job. 99% of your stories probably don't matter, and 99% of the story you're telling probably doesn't matter. So when we talk about how do you tell your story, we talk about what's your 1%? What is, if you only have X amount of time, what do you need to tell for yourself and to benefit someone else? What's your 1%? Once upon a time, where is the moment in the story? Where do you start? Back in the day, when I went to grad school, it was back in 1982, we didn't have computers to register. So you would have to stand in line in the gym and pick the cards for the classes. I was going to go to school the summer of that year, and I decided, no, I'm going to be a waiter, because I've never been a waiter at night. And I'm going to go meet girls on the beach during the day. Well, unfortunately, both things didn't work all that well. I got fired from the waiter job. Ironically, it was a deli, right, owned by this Jewish man. And it was my second week on the job, and I told him, you have me on the schedule next Thursday. My mom at age 55 is having a bat mitzvah. He knew what that was. She was going to read from the Torah. They didn't do it when she was a little girl. So I can't be there Thursday. I come in on Friday. He says, you're fired. What do you mean I'm fired? He said, you were supposed to work yesterday. You didn't make it. What? I told you. Didn't make a difference. I was fired. So I had to tell my mom the day after bat mitzvah, I just got fired because I went to your bat mitzvah. So I did what all good Jewish boys from Chicago area do when they don't want to tell their mom something. I went down to Wrigley Field and watched the Cubs lose. But because I had this grand plan, none of which worked out, I went to school in the fall of that year. And I stood behind Michelle Ellis of Woodmere, New York for the 45 minutes it took to get to the front of the line. Oh, those blue eyes. So our marriage will be 37 years this June. And our daughter will be 27 this Thursday. The moment I chose to change my acceptance from summer to fall was seemingly an innocuous moment made by a young man who had no idea what he was doing. It didn't matter. Sometimes life works for you even when you don't know it's working for you. I couldn't imagine my life without her. If I'd gone to school that summer, I would have met somebody else, maybe other kids, but not the way it worked out. A moment
A moment in time. What is your story? I think our stories are sort of like when we were in kindergarten, we had show and tell. Right? Hey, how was your trip? Oh, I went down to Jamaica. Look, I got this really cool thing, and we did this and we did that. And it's show and tell. But we want to respect people's time. This Thanksgiving, we want to let them know that they have stories to share too, and they don't have all day to hear stories. I could tell them, and most of us could. So how do we take that 1%? What is really important? And how do you share it? People ask me often about my public radio work. And it usually is, well, who was your favorite guest? And I'd have to look at the calendar because I forget all the people I interviewed. It's just part of the job. You're just happy to do it. But what do you remember, they would ask. The most, I'd answer, a man whose name I never knew. I was interviewing Ed Tick. He's a psychologist. He used to run a place in upstate New York called Soldier's Heart for the soldiers who were crushed by being soldiers at war and had post-traumatic stress. They came and he helped them. He took many, many plane loads of soldiers back to Vietnam to try to help them rebuild what they had before they went. As we talked about what he did, we took a call from a man in the middle of the woods in Wisconsin. He said, I went to Vietnam and I killed all these people I never knew. I've been broken ever since, and I live alone up in this cabin. And he started to weep. Now, at first, that was great radio, a man unabashedly weeping. So after 30 seconds, I'm wondering, how long does this go on before it's not good radio? And the answer I came at in that moment was, as long as it takes. I was thinking my boss was going to call us. I really thought you should have stopped him. But if that was the last show I ever did, the right thing to do was to let this man be heard. And weeping was one of the parts of the story, right? So he finally stopped, but it went well over a minute. And again, in radio, that's a long time. And I don't remember how the call ended. And I've never stopped thinking about what happened to her. So our stories aren't always completed, but it's just knowing at that moment in time, you served to let someone be heard. You served to help validate who they are and what they've been through, to help them figure out where they're going. I went to a new coffee place in the office I was working at, and this young lady was there. There was nobody in there. And I said, good morning, can I have a whatever? And I always order double cupped and sleeved because I have sensitive fingers. I said, how are you? Oh my goodness. She was sick. Shouldn't have been at work, but she couldn't afford not to be at work because of the kids. She was really depressed, she said. Hated the job. Couldn't seem to get another job. This was 2 minutes of getting a cup of coffee. But when I got the coffee and thanked her for it, she said, no, thank you. Sometimes it just helps to talk a little bit when things aren't going well. Yeah. It's true, it's true. So I see our guest speakers arrive. I'm going to tell you one more story. I usually answer questions with stories, and I just love to share them, but this is one of my favorites. I was driving down the road, not wanting to go to work, because even being a talk show host, public radio has days you don't want to go to work. And I did something I never do, well, except that day. I said out loud, why am I going to work today? You don't expect an answer. But as I said it, a woman in a minivan drove past me on the highway. And, you know, if you do the same drive every day, scary, but you're driving a 2-ton automobile, 60 miles an hour, and you may not be aware of anything of that drive. This is one of those days I was. It was winter, but we hadn't had a lot of snow. The grass looked dirty and ugly, and trees didn't have anything special going on, but I was paying attention to the ride. And the minivan passed just as I said, why am I going to work today? And the license plate on that minivan read LUV, the number 4, Ben. I couldn't believe it. In fact, I wasn't sure I saw it, but I know I saw it, right? But there was nobody there to say I saw it. Living on the North Shore of Milwaukee, it's not a very busy community over time. You think, well, if she lived here, I'd see it again. 5 years later, I did, in a parking lot. So I snapped a picture because I've told the story and I want people to believe it's true. Look, here's the license. And I've got to figure there probably is a Rocky and a Sunny in every state of the nation's license plates. Love for Ben, I'm not quite so sure. But what a great answer for a question. My audience loved me. I loved working and meeting people who I interviewed in the audience. It's a pretty cool response. I still wondered, why does she have that on her license plate? 3 years ago, there's a polar vortex and we have a cat and he needs litter. So I go to get it and I'm coming out of the pet store and I put the litter in the back and what do I see next to the car, next to mine? Love for Pet. And the engine's running. I knock on the window, go on. No, it's gold. But I got to ask you. See, my name is Ben. She goes, you know, a lot of people do that. I had a woman leave a note on my windshield. She wanted to know all about Ben because her son was named Ben and he had died. And she told me this because she put the note on my window. And then I came out to see her and to leave. And I saw her. And then another one stopped me and saw it. And her grandson was named Ben. He passed away too. She goes, I think it's nice that your name is Ben. I hope you don't think I'm going to give up the license plate. Ben was the best beagle I ever had. I can't thank you enough for your time and your attention and the energy you give me, because without it, I can't do a thing up here. And I thank you for letting me share these stories. And I hope as you share your own, you'll remember to focus on the 1% and listen twice as much as you speak and realize that the gifts people give you are contained in the stories they share with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben. It was wonderful. I think I will turn it over now to Rev Honig and Mariah from the Door County Housing Partnership.
Well, it looks like instead of my remarks to you, I brought my sermon, so. Sorry. No, this morning, Jim Honig, a pastor at Shepherd of the Bay Lutheran Church and also president of the board of the Door County Housing Partnership. And this morning, I come to you bearing two messages. And the first is a message from me as the president of the board of directors of the Door County Housing Partnership, along with my colleague and fellow board member, Mariah Good. And we just want to offer a formal word of thanks to you for your extraordinarily generous gift of $9,000 to the Housing Partnership. Congratulations on your anniversary. Congratulations on the money that you raised for organizations in the community, and our deep gratitude for the generosity that you've shown to the Housing Partnership. Your gift is going to be used as part of the community subsidy for a home that one of our Door County working families is going to move into. The wonderful thing about your gift is that it's a gift that is going to keep on giving in perpetuity. Your gift helps bring a community asset in the form of a home that will always be available to an income-qualified working family for the life of the home. And so your investment of $9,000 literally will keep on giving for generations. So thank you. But I also come to you this morning as a friend and sibling and fellow pilgrim. I want to share with you that over the past 5 years, you have demonstrated to me such kindness and respect as both a religious and civic leader in the community. And by your example here at the Unitarian Universal Fellowship, you have shown that the spiritual journey is not exclusively an inner and private journey, but it's a journey that has implications not only for what we believe, but for how we live. And so I am grateful for your example. And I am grateful for the way that you inspire me and you inspire a community and you inspire all of those around you to a values-driven and service-focused life. So thank you for that. Now, let me say a word about our progress at the Housing Partnership. Something that I meant to do the last time I was here and forgot. So we are currently in the process of moving towards closing on the second home in our portfolio. Now that home was built in cooperation with a local private philanthropist who fronted the money to build the home and a local builder who narrowed their profit margins in order to bring the house in at an affordable cost. And so at closing, the donor is going to get back their money by the mortgage that the homeowner is going to provide and our community subsidy, and then they're going to turn around and use that money again to begin construction on another home on the same street. And that home, we are thrilled to tell you, is being purchased by a young single mom with 2 children. And she works in one of the manufacturing businesses in Sturgeon Bay. Now this mom is now going to be able to provide for herself and her 2 children a stable home, a place for her boys to play and eventually to shoot hoops in the driveway. No more moving around from apartment to apartment as the rents continue to rise. And so the long-term impact on the community to provide this kind of stability for families is immeasurable. But we are confident that not only will this family directly benefit from the generosity of a community, but the entire community is going to benefit from that kind of stability for generations to come. So thank you. And if I may say, keep up the good work.
Hi, Mariah Good, board member of Door County Housing Partnership. I don't have much to add to what Jim said other than to also offer my thanks and to tell you, if you haven't already heard, that we are about to close on 8 lots in Sister Bay. So we know that Northern Door has been more acutely in need of affordable housing, although we've had a ridiculous number of applications for the home that we have in Sturgeon Bay. So it seems as if the need is acute everywhere. But I just wanted to let you know that we are about to acquire 8 lots kind of near the daycare center in Sister Bay from the village, and they're very generously offering them to us at a very low price. So be on the lookout for the work that we're going to be doing in Northern Door.
Thank you for sharing your time and coming up to talk to us. Whew, we should all feel proud of what we've accomplished this year and will continue to do. And I hope you'll bear with me. I came across a reading, it's a little bit long, but I'll try to get through it quickly, about the importance of storytelling. Before I do that, I just hope you'll join us for a little bit of coffee, tea, fellowship in the gathering room following the service. And after about 15 minutes, there will be a talk back here with Ben. So if you have any questions or comments or anything for us, please join us in here and we'll have it broadcast as well. It will be streamed. The Importance of Storytelling by Nigel Finn. Our words have power. Our story is important. I think it's important to remember that, and I know that people forget it sometimes. I certainly did, and some people don't believe it at all. But I believe that even if nobody is listening, even if there's no one to tell your story, it is still important. Sometimes it's all we're left with, and we have to cling to it with all our might. We're lucky enough to be main characters in a lot of other people's stories, and that's a hell of an achievement. We get the chance to influence other people's stories, and they, in turn, influence even more people's stories. Without us, everyone else's stories get shortened, and there ends up being less variation in the storytelling world. If we don't add to the storytelling process, then the whole world slows down. Every single relationship we establish with someone gives them more of a story to tell. Even if we don't make a story of your own, even if you don't make a story of your own, you're still a vessel for other people's stories to travel through, and that's amazing in itself. The tiniest detail can change everything. The memory of holding a hand, a snippet of information, recommending a favorite ice cream, falling over in a hilarious manner, it travels through other people's stories. And without you, that story doesn't get told, or gets told at a later time by someone else, by which time the person you could have shared your story with has missed out on a chance to pass that story on to a whole host of other people. That changes the whole storytelling world. Every future chain of events in which you could have but didn't tell your story becomes different. There's less of a story. It's not as full as it could have been, and everyone, albeit unknowingly, suffers a little more for it. Most of us aren't wise enough or powerful enough to be the true wise man that our species name Homo sapiens implies, changing the world in a dramatic way with one fell swoop, with a single action, or in the course of our lifetime. But we're certainly very capable of being Hans Nahrens, storytelling apes, and injecting a bit more variety in the lives of others. I can't think of a better reason to exist other than mattering so much that the whole future of the world becomes less varied and slightly less impressive if we simply cease to be. Every moment of joy, every moment of anger, rage, suffering, jealousy, euphoria, and even numbness contributes to the stories we end up telling. Even if we're not talking about those moments specifically, we learn from them, we change because of them, and the stories we tell evolve with each new experience. You don't need to write yourself, or sooner or later, somewhere down the line, someone will write something that never would have been written if you had not existed. And their work will be all the more glorious for the stories you helped to pass on. You are literally part of a bunch of great works to be written. You are a poem or a play. You are the beginning, middle, end of several best-selling novels. You are the first sentence in a book that grabs a publisher's attention and the last one that spawns a franchise. You are important, and without you, the whole literary world loses a masterpiece that would have made a whole bunch of people feel like they weren't alone in the universe. You are their comfort as they lie awake at night with nothing but a book and the inspiration that causes a child to believe in themselves. I can't think of anything more important than your words, your thoughts, and the story you have to tell. But I know that without them, the world never becomes as glorious as it could have been. I love you. I know others love you as well. And I'm certain that part of the love that people feel for you will travel throughout the stories they tell, eventually end up in a famous book, song, or an artist's brushstrokes, and cause someone else to love that piece of the story you helped create. And then they'll pass it on. Within each of our hearts, there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light be a guide in your decision. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need, and both body and spirit, that they might find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth, tell your story, and share your glorious light with the world. May it be so.
thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Bye-bye now.